How to Make Decisions Effectively from Ray Dalio. And with that being said, hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics fucking podcast. And I'm pretty fucking pumped as always to be here. Today we are going ahead with Ray Dalio's principles, the summary from the alanchang.com website. Because it's a great website and I'm not kind of affiliated to them or something else. It's just a great website, and it really, really fucking is, because the summaries there are just so fucking incredibly detailed and long that yeah, I sometimes really feel like, okay, you just only have to go through them and you actually do not have to read the book, which is incredible, because he, so the author of these summaries, actually says that he is he's compressing, I think, all the information is there into, I guess, somehow 20% of the whole volume in terms of the text from the original book, which is just amazing. Like, you do just get, I think, 90 or 80% of the whole information through 20% or 10% of the text, which is just great. And maybe you can be a little bit, kind of critical there and be like, okay, yeah, you can totally see that there's a lot of fluff in these books, which actually can be true, but I don't know, like, for sure there will be certain stories and there will be certain kind of information and kind of pages that are not quite necessary for the whole thing, but I guess it's just contributing the whole experience of actually reading the book. So what I've seen in How to Win Friends and Influence People from Dale Carnegie is that he has always used just stories to actually somehow explain what he meant by all the rules that he pointed out. And at my point of view, it really helped me to understand and also implement these certain rules into my life, because I've seen a way how he implemented them or how he actually has seen them. And also I think through stories we just really kind of memorize things way better. Like, I don't know why actually, but it's just the case, and I just see that my fucking towel is again there. And I, by the way, hope that there's not a lot of echo here, because my room, there is actually quite nothing in it, which may be leading to a lot of echo here, but I hope it's not. I really hope it's not. But yeah, that's great that there is no, but maybe when I click, fuck you. No, you can't see it unfortunately, but I just jumped to the really, really top of the whole summary, which is not that good. And I, by the way, hope that we're gonna just get further and further and further pretty quickly, not because I don't like the whole summary, no, but because, yeah, I don't want to waste your time, and yeah, my time is just like, I like it. I like what I'm doing here. So it's quite not me wasting time for me, but maybe I'm practically kind of wasting time for you, which is something I do not want to do. Something I really don't want to do. So how to make decisions effectively. After you collect information, how do you make the best decisions for yourself? While each decision has unique particularities, here are general principles. Principles. So learn well. Be radically open-minded. Actually something he pointed out quite often there, but I think it is really important, and it really makes sense that he's pointing it out so fucking often. Synthesize the situation, which is something that I really like, something I really appreciate, and something that I really would say, okay, you should do it as well. Really synthesizing the situation, just in your mind, thinking that you are in a certain situation, and then deciding whether it is something nice or it is something bad. And I've actually been just doing it because I just learned geography for school, actually, because I'm having a test on Tuesday, and I thought, like, I'm gonna learn and so on, and then I just realized, I'm alone at home. Maybe I should actually record because it is way nicer, because I can theoretically just shout around like like a piece of shit. But yeah, but nobody's bothering me and nobody's there. They could just, be offended by me being a little bit more loud. So I decided to actually stop learning and do the recording or record. But while I was learning, because I'm just heading towards some times, or I'm heading towards like the last grade, where I'm gonna have my A levels and whatsoever, and yeah, there I'm gonna have some not exams in terms of actually written exams, but also just like speaking. You're talking to someone about something. I don't know how I should else kind of explain this, but yeah, I would say like okay, what I actually want to say is that I just in my head put myself in a situation where I was talking to this certain person about this certain thing, and I was trying to actually kind of speak in the proper language, because as you might know, in Austria we do not have a clear kind of German, so we do it using a dialect. I think it's actually also the same in English, I hope at least. So therefore we do just have to talk in plain German when we are in our exams, or when we have these exams. And so I try to also just keep attention to this, and also to actually kind of speak a little bit longer, because you actually, I think, have to talk for about 5 to 7 minutes or something. And if you can't do that, they actually think like, okay, you're not that good in this certain topic because you don't know what to talk about. And so it just makes sense to actually synthesize the whole situation, or just think you are in a certain situation. Which somehow leads to gaining perspective on size. Some issues or facts are more important than others, which is totally true. Like, certain dates and so on can be pretty important, but others are just so like unnecessary. Like, you just don't need them. Don't mistake opinions for facts. Very important. And synthesize over time. Observe the rate of change as well as the baseline level. Many see something getting better, but ignore that it is not getting better quickly enough. Yeah, same thing with our environment, isn't it? Somehow, like, still there are people who are like, okay, there is no kind of global warming or something. I don't know. I'm not gonna talk about this because this is something so fucking controversial. I do not want to do this. I really don't, because why would I? Just unnecessary. I really don't want to bother anybody, like in this way, because this is totally something that's so controversial. It is just really unnecessary to talk about. Like, there's so many things to talk about than politics and the environment, and then politics and the environment and whatsoever. So we don't have to. Simplify. Focus on the by and large general level of understanding. Don't focus on edge cases or whether it's totally true. By and large general level of understanding. Don't focus on edge cases. I do quite get what he means, but not fully. But use the 80-20 rule to see what 20% of factors yield 80% of the outcome. So I've definitely been talking about the 80-20 rule for so fucking often, because it's really an incredible rule. What it basically says, for example, is that you can learn 80% of the stuff in 20% of the time, which then leads to you actually taking 80% of the time for 20% of the rest you had to learn, or you have to learn. Which means like, okay, if you learn kind of 80% of the whole thing, you're only going to take somehow 20% of the time. This could still be a lot, but definitely it's way less than the 80%. But there, in terms of learning, and I've already, tried to actually think about it in terms of learning, it doesn't make any sense if you're doing it like, okay, you have in total, you have 20 pages to learn. Okay, then I'm now gonna just only learn kinda 80% of the pages. I wouldn't do that. I really wouldn't. Because of one thing. if these pages are actually structured into chapters and each chapter has nothing to do with the chapter before, then it would totally make no fucking sense, because you would basically then just really lose a lot of information. So therefore, it's really, at my point of view at least, it's really important to actually use this rule in a proper way, like in a logical and a way that just makes sense. Because if I have 3 chapters and I'm just kind of going through the first 2 chapters fully, and the last chapter is like, okay, I'm not going to go through it, and then in the exam the really last chapter is the only one that's in the exam, and the other 2 don't, you're basically fucked. Which somehow leads me to the whole thinking that you should probably learn 80% of every chapter, like 80% of the first chapter, 80% of the second chapter, and 80% of the third chapter, so that you're actually prepared for every one of these kind of chapters somehow equally, not fully equally, because it's yeah, like, who knows, but you're not missing out on information that might fuck you in the end. The next thing is navigate levels of abstraction. Use the metaphor of above the line as the main points and below the line as detailed subpoints. Is it now about learning, by the way? Learn well. No, it's about make decisions effectively. Use the metaphor of above the line as the main points and below the line as detailed points. By the way, above the line and below the line, if you're interested in marketing, this is totally something you will come across, because it basically means like above the line are all the things like posters and posters and everything that's quite outside, like the really big posters and like the A3 posters and whatever there is. Like there are quite a lot of things, and below the line is basically today when you're doing something direct. As I know, some time ago it was something that was personalized, but because of the internet and because all these things, personalization is something that we just have to do. Like if you're putting out an Instagram ad and you're not personalizing it to your target audience, it wouldn't make any fucking sense, because you won't just have any people who are actually interested in this. So you just have to personalize it somehow. But it could also be like, okay, direct mailing and something. So emails basically with direct kind of you're personalizing them to really each person. But below the line is more like, okay, you're gonna go up to some people and give them a flyer or something, if I remember correctly. You will totally find a lot of different kind of explanations on the internet. Probably the one that I've just pointed out, which is, okay, one of them is personalized and one of them is not personalized, or one of them, which would be the above the line, is more like you're spreading it like crazy, and the below the line is just personalized and very kind of direct and something. You will find a lot of things, unfortunately, maybe. Go below the line only when necessary to illustrate a main point. Don't get lost in the weeds. I'm very sorry, but I basically do not quite understand the whole thing. Like, what does that have to do with making decisions? This is more about like kind of convincing someone of something. But maybe you get it. I hope you do. Decide well. Yeah, it would be a great thing if you actually decide well. Fucking hell. So figure out the criteria underlying your decision making and systematize them. And there are more informations below. Never size the first available option. Actually, what does size mean? Grab and take and whatsoever. I think this is actually true, even though I do really have to say that often it really comes up to the point where it's like, okay, the first kind of option is somehow good already, but you kind of decide to actually, search for other ones, and in the end, you're actually taking the first one. This is also something that I've come across when I'm, designing something. Like the first idea is something like, okay, like the first idea. But then I'm really trying hard to get other ideas and to see what I can do. And then in the end, I just decide like, okay, you know what? The first option and the first design that I made was actually kind of the best one. Yeah. And maybe, you should totally just take the first one and see what you can do with it. This is actually also a great challenge, or an interesting challenge actually. If you're like, okay, you're gonna take the first idea you're having and then you're trying to make the best out of it. Then you're really just saving a lot of time by actually kind of taking the first one rather than just searching for others. And you're basically then having more time for actually doing this and trying to see what you can do with it and how much you can get out of it. The probability is more important than the possibility. No, sorry, I just jumped a few things. Make expected value calculations. Everything has a probability and a reward for being right, and a probability and penalty for being wrong. That's totally true. The probability is more important than the possibility, which is binary. Either it's possible or it's not possible, but the probability is okay, it could happen to 70%. You can really think about that. And now it makes sense for me what he's talking about in terms of the whole decision-making process, because it really leads to actually being rational, by really being honest to yourself and seeing okay, this makes sense and I'm gonna take this because this makes fucking sense, because the probability of it being right or the probability of it being good is way higher than all the other options that I'm having. And also don't look under the hood too much, above the line, below the line, which means being somehow, at my point of view, what I'm saying, because he says, go below the line only when necessary to illustrate a main point, don't get lost in the weeds, which somehow for me means don't get, too much into detail, because maybe it's just going to get harder for you to make the decision. But I'm only assuming. I'm really only assuming. I'm just, giving you my thoughts, what I think about. I'm still learning. I'm quite doing the same thing as you're doing here, which is learning, which is just fucking learning. It's okay to take a chance when the chances of success are low, but the upside is very high if the downside is low. So it's okay to take a chance when the chances of success are low, but the upside is very high. Or if the downside is low, or if the downside is very low, which makes sense, which is the same thing with stocks somehow. Nobody would actually only buy or have stocks that are very, 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 very fucking high in risks. Very fucking high in risks. Very, very, very fucking high in risks. But so fucking low on the return you're gonna get. Nobody would fucking do that. Why would you? Why would you just have a lot of risk and fucking no reward? Maybe there are certain things that somehow make sense that you're doing it like this. So maybe, I'm not that educated in the stock area, but why would you? For sure, you're going to take some stocks that are really high in risk, but also high in reward. And you're taking some to be a little bit more safer, that are low in risk and also low in return. Just diversification there is very important, as I know at least, or it just makes sense also. It's not okay to rule out an option simply because there's something wrong with it. Which means I don't know. Choosing what not to do is an important choosing what to do. Is as important as choosing what to do. Q. Warren Buffett, if you only had 8 investments to make in your lifetime, those investments will be far better. Makes somehow sense, because maybe, if you only have, or if you only had 8 investments, then you would totally just, take the time to see what you're going to do, what you're going to invest in. Not going to go for the short term, but you're going to go for the long term, I guess. You're not going to try to get rich quick, click this button, you're going to get rich quick through me, just buy my fucking course. Something you see so often, every fucking Instagram, not only Instagram, but most of the time, actually YouTube advertisements are okay, and some of them make it really, really just, really smart and say there are so many people outside there I don't know, I'm not just joking around. I'm not actually kind of trying to offend someone, but it's just interesting that a lot of people just, sell their courses. But I really like Gary Vee's point of view on this, because he says like he is giving out his advice and his knowledge just for free. Because at the end, everybody is still coming back, rather for the content or rather for actually making business with him. Like, it just makes sense. It really makes sense. Like, you're giving a lot of value, people will take it, people will see, okay, it is actual value and it is actually good. And then they will come to you or just, spread the message, be like, okay, you gotta have to check this out because you really can just, have a great ROI on that. Even though I do think, on the other hand, it is also somehow difficult to actually give away all your information for free. No matter in which form it will be, whether it be an actual free course or whatever. I guess a lot of people won't take action on it. If this is something you should, be caring about, or if you should be concerned about, I don't actually know. Because if you're saying like, okay, this is great value, you can just make a few $1,000 on that, and the people don't do it, then yeah, it's quite their fault, or it's like they are to blame, not you. But if you sell something for some money, no matter how high it is or no matter how much it is, I guess they will probably take more action on things they have bought than on things they have gotten for free. Unfortunately, maybe it's good, maybe it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but yeah. Decide without emotion. Convert principles into algorithms and have the computer decide alongside you. Figure out when it's better to decide that it is to gather more information. Use principles to fast track your decisions. Actually totally makes sense. Really don't use your fucking emotions when you're making decisions. Like, for sure we do, because we are emotional motherfuckers. Like, it's just what we are. It's just who we are, and it makes sense that we are then also deciding with our emotions. What it leads to, at my point of view, is that you're gonna make just bad decisions because you somehow feel bad. Maybe there are two ways you can think about it. Think about it. The first thing I think is how you feeling when you're making decision, because at my point of view, and I think I've got it from someone or somewhere, I don't actually remember. He said, I think it was actually a book and also a summary. He said that we're gonna make bad decisions, or we're gonna make certain decisions when we are in a good mood or in a really good mood, but we're also gonna make certain decisions when we are in a really bad mood. Like, maybe you would not have tipped like $700 to this waitress if you haven't been in such a good mood. Or you wouldn't have kind of smoked a cigarette if you wouldn't have been in such a bad mood, or drank the beer or whatever it will be. Like, it makes sense, and it's really the bad and the good, and this is important to actually also maybe not make decisions when you are in a really, really fucking good mood. Even though I think it's way tougher to actually kind of restrict yourself from actually doing this decision when you are in a really good mood. Because yeah, I'm actually just seeing if I should actually go through the next sentence. So systemize your decision making with principles. Yeah, I think because it somehow is also correlated to the thing above. Like, you should totally take or use a computer, which is actually great. Like, you could actually be like, okay, the probability of this being right and wrong is this and that, so now fucking calculate it. It's actually a great thing. Systemize your decision making with principles. Principles are fundamental truths that allow you to make better decisions quickly. Think through your principles for making decisions, write them out in both words and algorithms, backtest them, and use them on real-time basis in parallel with your brain. Sounds pretty scientific, but also pretty good. So when you recognize a situation as another one of those, you can just refer to your rules as a shortcut to good decision making. Like your rules could be like, okay, I do not want to do certain things after a certain just time. Like I do not want to do certain things at 9 p.m. Is also a rule. Or you don't want to do something that won't get you any money. Is also a rule. Even though it's maybe a bad rule. Good principles are timeless. Have respect for history. What you see may not have happened before your lifetime. An example, 2008, Bridgewater's depression gauge was indicating, I think it's gauge, it's AUGE, which is like Gauss. What is it, a Gauss? It really is a Gauss, or Gauss, Gates, gauge. Chiefly, you have also gauge. Yeah, it's gauge, sorry. Even though it's like, yeah, never mind. It's, super gauge or gouge. When, for example, Fukushima just, blew up, or not only Fukushima, but also, what is it called? The other one, Fukushima and Chernobyl, yes, or whatever it is actually called in English. It's Chernobyl. Never mind. Was indicating a bursting point to the depth. So Bridgewater's depression gauge was indicating a bursting point to the debt or debt bubble. Since the costs of debt servicing were outpacing projected cash flows and interest rates were so close to zero that they couldn't reverse the downturn. Delio studied history and went day by day through the Great Depression and the Weimar Republic to compare what was happening. Between people, the principles, criteria, rules become the substrate for disagreements. Rather than argue about the conclusions, argue about the principles. If you agree on the principles, then you should also agree on the decisions. Or on the decisions. An example would be, Delio began by writing down his decision-making criteria for trading so that when he closed the trade, he could reflect on how well the criteria worked. He would backtest the criteria over a century of data in every country available. Bridgewater started using computers in the late 70s to automate trading criteria and produce trading decisions in response to the environment. Indicators would catch shifting fundamentals and trend-following filters would confirm price movements. Both pointing in the same direction was a strong signal. Makes sense. Like if you do just have really strong principles and rules, and if both of them are checked or right or true, whatsoever, it is just great. He has started automating management and human relationships through tools like recording all meetings, the dot collector, and the pain button. Computers can take in data points about people and figure out how to get the most out of people for each project, which also is somehow correlated to his point that he made early in the summary, which was all about managing people and actually giving them attributes like in sports cards or basketball cards, where you'd be like, okay, this is a visionary, this is a creative, this is a blah blah blah. And if you feed it into a computer, you could totally be like, by certain principles, like, okay, creators really like to work with visionaries, or some other generalizations. It might not be true for everybody, but I guess there are certain principles that can be true and can be right. But you can totally feed it to a computer and be like, okay, make an algorithm out of it and or just decide for me, and he will decide for you, or she, or it actually. But yeah, this is actually it with the episode. I hope you've liked it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something out of it. And I would really like you to thank you for actually viewing it, for actually, watching it, for actually listening to it. If you've gone through the whole thing, like it's half an hour, it's totally something. I wish you the best, and I'll see you the next time, I wish you the best health, wealth, happiness, and success. And still, I hope that you're gonna be, remind yourself on how you're gonna be remembered. You know, whether you're gonna be remembered as a good person or as a bad person. You will fucking see.